this series, we're talking about 3 different people who were impacted by Jesus and played a part in the Easter story. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the most important event in the Christian faith. And to start, we're going to see what this incredible woman named Mary had to do with it. Now, when you hear the name Mary from the Bible, you may immediately think about the mother of Jesus. Or maybe you've heard a story of a guy named Lazarus and his sisters Mary and Martha. Well, while both of those Marys are pretty important women in the Bible, they're not the Mary that we're going to be talking about today. This Mary may not have been the most well-known Mary, but what we're going to learn about her life is powerful. This Mary was from a small fishing village called Magdala, and she was known as Mary Magdalene. Now, here's the thing. It's actually a pretty big deal that we can talk about any of these Marys today, because at the time they lived, women weren't really that big of a deal. They didn't have a lot of rights. That's actually one reason there's a lot more men talked about in the Bible than women. And that's also part of what made Jesus so interesting. In the culture that gave women less rights, less leadership, and less opportunities, Jesus went out of his way to value women and give them opportunities. In fact, we know that during his life and ministry, he was close to Mary Magdalene. He knew her by name. He saw her as important, and we know this because of some of Jesus' closest followers. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John recorded it for us in the Bible. And because Jesus was so close to Mary Magdalene, she was included in the story of Easter that helped shape our Christian faith. Let's take a look. So, to catch us up, Jesus had just been killed. He was crucified on a cross, which was a horrible and public death that friends like Mary Magdalene were there to witness. Then he was buried in a tomb, and because she cared so much about him, she went to visit his grave. But what did she find? An empty tomb. Could someone have moved or taken the body? Thinking what happened, she began to weep even more. Then we learned that Mary was visited by 2 angels who wanted to know why she was so sad. Wow, angels, this is so amazing. Then something happened that totally took Mary by surprise. Something that changed things not just for Mary, but for all of us who believe in Jesus still today. Take a look at this. So there Mary was, weeping over the death of her friend and teacher, when just like that, another person appeared. Now, of course, thinking Jesus was dead, she didn't first recognize that it was him. After all, she saw him die. But then Jesus used Mary's name. He wanted her to know that it was him, that he knew her, that he saw her, and when he spoke to her by name, she recognized him immediately. And of course she was in shock. See, Jesus had just risen from the dead. That's what we celebrate at Easter as the resurrection. Now, to resurrect something means to bring back to life. So at Easter, we remember when Jesus died on the cross, was buried in the tomb, and then we celebrate the fact that he walked out of the tomb 3 days later. In other words, he came back to life. See, Jesus' resurrection is so important. Because of it, we can trust that God is who he says he is. Jesus spent years in his ministry telling his followers that very thing would happen, that his death and resurrection were coming, and that these events would change everything. And then it actually happened. It was all true. And because of that, we believe all the things that Jesus promised us are true as well. We can walk confidently knowing that we can be close to God. Jesus made this possible for us for eternity through the resurrection. That's what makes Easter so important. And one of the reasons we know this is an important thing is because Mary was there to see him. She witnessed it with her own eyes. She followed through on an important task. Take a look. Mary was the first person to witness the resurrection. She was the person he asked to share the news with his closest followers. And I love how this passage ends. She gave them his message. I mean, talk about an important job, because Mary believed she knew what Jesus' resurrection meant, and she said yes to sharing that message with the rest of his followers. She is one of the reasons we have record of these moments still today, and that makes her an important piece of the most important event in our faith, Jesus' resurrection. Maybe you felt unimportant. Maybe you feel like nobody else sees or notices you, that people don't understand you, that God would never choose or love you. Well, let me assure you that what we celebrate every year at Easter proves that you are not only important, but you are important to God. He sent his son Jesus to die for you, to come back to life so that you could be close with him forever and that you would never have to suffer the consequences of death. Here's what I want you to remember. Easter reminds us we're important no matter what. God chose somebody like Mary Magdalene to help spread the word about the resurrection. He chose her to be important and to be an important part of the story. And that's what is cool. And it can be the same for us. God didn't just send Jesus to die for those people back then. His resurrection wasn't just to help them. He didn't just want to help people like Mary to know he saw and cared about them. He did it for us. No matter how other people see us, how we feel about us, the resurrection proves that we are loved, that we are seen, that we are chosen, and that each and every one of us have value. Easter reminds us we're important no matter what. The question is, how do we begin to believe that? First, I think we need to think about how we see ourselves. Do you believe that you're important to God, to those around you, even to yourself? Do you talk down to yourself? Do you allow negative thoughts or words about who you are or others see you to take up space in your mind? Do you think you deserve to be treated badly because you're not important? Do you think God even cares about you at all? Get honest with yourself and think about the way you feel about you. God, ask him to remind you this Easter that his love is for you, that you are seen by him, that you are valued, and that you are important. Next, think about how you treat others. One of the most important things we can do this Easter is to show Jesus' love to everyone around us. And we can start by treating others with the same value that Jesus did. We can show people no matter what, no matter who they are, that they're important to us by listening to them, by inviting them to be a part of our group, standing up for them when they're being mistreated, learning about people of different races, ethnicities, and religions, or even simply saying hello in the hallway. God's love working through us shows them that they're important. So as you head out this week, start thinking about how you'd answer this question. What makes the resurrection important to you?